First, Mark, I want to ask you this because to me, this is one of the neatest phenomenon in all of tri-state football. If you take away all the qualifiers, the best wide receiver in college football is a Jacksonville Crimson and a current Illinois College Blue Boy,
Yeah.
and may have a chance to play on Sundays at some point. Can you explain to me the Cullen Brunstein phenomenon, how that happened, and how he went so woefully under-recruited?
Well, I told a lot of people that I said, this is a kid that's under the radar screen because where we were as a program at the time, we weren't a great passing team. We had some injuries, and we started switching back to under center offensive option football. But I said, this kid, you look at his speed, you look at his verticals, what his height is right now. When he touched the ball, unbelievable things happened. I said, this is a kid that needs to be recruited. And, it didn't work out that way. Then he gets to Illinois College and progresses. He's starting to fill out. And then the perfect storm of the perfect scheme and the perfect coach to run plays and an offensive system that fits his. I mean, it was a phenomenal situation to watch last year.
Are you surprised by any of this, now that you kind of know what he is and where he started with the canvas he has?
I'm not surprised that he is topping out on his ability because he and his family have a great work ethic. Okay, am I surprised that he led all of college football in yards and touchdowns and everything? Yeah, I mean that's you don't wake up and think that this is reality, but he made it his reality, and I'm anxious to see what they're going to do year 2.
You worked really hard as part of the Coaches Association to get Week 0 games, which is a massive improvement, leap forward from the scrimmages, the soap scrimmages, the Gatorade scrimmages, whatever you want to call them. You had your first one. Just your thoughts coming off the whole Macomb experience, how that was a better ramp up for the season for the Jacksonville Crimsons?
Well, the first thing is we had a quality program with quality coaches that we made sure going in that we had both wanted to come out with exactly the same thing, which first and foremost that we were healthy. Okay, number 2, that we have the ability to expose our weaknesses and our strengths, but have some real game type competition. So that first and foremost that had to be taken care of before we decided to play. And after that, I had a conversation with a lot of coaches that did it. And the old adage used to be the most improvements you see in football is between week 1 and week 2. And that's because you can't simulate competition, live competition. So timing, seeing what kids are going to do when there's some pressure on them because there's somebody else that's not wearing the same color jersey as them across. How are they going to react? How are you as a coach going to respond in some critical situations? Because it's been a year since you've called plays. So all of that, how to handle locker room adjustments, where you go in the locker room, how do you come out from halftime? Those are all things that we got a complete dress run through that are going to, I think, make us a better team week 1 than what we normally would be if we just had our inter-squad soda scrimmage.
Macomb kind of fits the bill a little bit for you too. Braden Holdhouse can sling it all over the field. You get sort of that spread look. Drew Watson is a receiver that tests secondary guys of your nature. That really feels like a good fit for you, just in terms of who it was. And I know you have great respect for Tanner.
Yeah, it was a great fit. I mean, I think we gave them some things defensively that they're not going to see a ton of. That's going to help prepare them for the playoffs because I think they're a playoff team. I mean, as you said, the quarterback is legit. I mean, he does so many little things right, looking off receivers, planting his feet, always on balance, scrambling to get the ball down the field. I mean, he put the screws to us on some plays that we thought we had covered. And just a tremendous opportunity for two communities that normally don't play each other to get better together. And we're looking forward to going up to Macomb next year. I told their fans in the stands, they had a good following afterwards. I said, hey, we appreciate you coming down here. We can't wait to go up to your place next year.
You also were a big proponent for getting Quincy Notre Dame into your league, which I'm of the age where I can remember where actually it was Bill at the time, had to drive to Florida to get 9 total games.
Yeah.
You guys did right by football, not just Notre Dame, but right by football, didn't you?
Yeah, I think we had an opportunity to help a school that we played in almost every sport, give them a football home. And I think that eventually It's going to come to a head with scheduling and stuff across the state because, the state is starting to really see what it's doing to some of our programs. So it was a no-brainer. When we expanded, we needed to expand. The Central State had expanded east and north, and we felt it was about time that they expanded west. And my relationship with Bill prior to Jack was always a great relationship, great respect for the type of teams they put on the field. I just felt it made us a stronger, better conference, number one. But it also, like you said, it did right by the football gods, giving them a place to call home for a while.
Nobody always looks at it that way, though, Mark. It's like Quincy Notre Dame had been successful, and there were other conferences that wouldn't open their doors. I mean, when you're the Central State 8, you have some cachet to do that because nobody here is afraid of anybody because you play the best week in and week out.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm not so sure how I would have been as a 32-year-old head coach wanting them to come in as I am at 55 now, seeing the bigger picture of what has to happen to help all programs in the state, and becoming involved in the coaches association and being privy to some of those conversations. I think that COVID really drove the coaching profession closer to each other because without each other we weren't going to have the ability to have a season, and we knew that we had to be one voice and help each other out, and I think this is just an extension of that.
You're helping each other out too in week one. Pittsfield had an opening, you had an opening. It might not have been the most elegant way for either of you to get there, but you touch on the nature of football. Some of that's happening where programs can't field teams anymore. Different things happen. How lucky do you feel to actually have a week one game?
Well, the last Friday in July, we were told that we weren't going to have a game. So I called Sam Knox immediately, and he said there's 3 teams in the entire state that don't have games week one. You can take a week one forfeit and stay at home, which nobody wants because you only have a finite amount of football games in your career. Or you can call these teams, and one of them happened to be Pittsfield. So I got together with Coach, and we talked about where we were with programs, numbers, sizes, things like that. And he talked to his people, we talked to our people. We got back together the next day and said, you know what, for our kids and our community, let's do this. And it's 30 minutes away. Honestly, some people will talk about size different. We're closer to size to Pittsfield than what we are with Chatham, and we play Chatham in our conference. Okay, so it's one of those situations that there's a lot of similarities between our two communities. There's a lot of similarities between the type of programs like band and FFA and cheer that football games center around. So we're giving a lot more than just our football kids opportunities to have those Friday night lights that they deserve.
You talk about being 55 years old and like things are different for you now than when you first got into coaching. I point out time-wise, you're not all that far away from the Elijah Owens era, and yet you've morphed into something completely different as a football team, post maybe the best quarterback this area has seen in a long, long time. Just for you, is that part of the fun, reinventing yourself at this point in your career, Mark?
Well, I think so. I've always said that if you're not willing to adapt, you go the way of the dinosaurs. Okay, and I don't want to be a dinosaur. Okay, part of what I love about coaching is that being around the youth invigorates me and challenges me. Okay, to be better and different. But I also think if you have your fingers on the pulse of what your lower levels are, what your community's producing, you start making some decisions. That maybe you have to zig sometimes when everybody's zagging. When we went to the spread. Back in 2005, 2006, there's only a couple teams that were shotgun teams throwing it all over the place. But I had Blake Schnicker. I knew I had Nick Lonergan coming down the path, and it fit what we were going to have. We're going to have wide receiver types. The days of big linemen and big backs we're going to be dry for a while. So we want to win games. So I've been fortunate to always have a staff that is willing to work and willing to adapt and willing to do what it takes to try to get the best out of our kids. And going back to under center option, a little bit different than what we did back in the early 2000s, but we did our research and we coach our kids up, and I think it gives us the best chance right now to be successful.
I think our friends at 1450 did a great job illuminating just how big and experienced you are up front. One thing I don't think they mentioned, though, is You look at your kids up front, they're athletes too. Aiden Surratt, phenomenal wrestler. McCombs, basketball player, shot putter. You're not just big, you're athletic big up front.
Yeah, and we walk the talk about multi-sport athletes here at Jacksonville High School. We've got a great relationship with all the other team sports. We have a ton of baseball, football guys as well. So you couple that with our fitness PE and Coach Thrasher. I think our kids are athletic and they know what it takes to be successful because we harp on it, and they've bought into it. So, yeah, I mean, we're not big and slow. We can move a little bit, and I think that's what is going to give us a good chance to have a decent offense this year.
I think obviously that what we saw a little bit on Friday is that, replacing Cameron Mitchell isn't just a one-person enterprise. It's kind of everybody has a piece in it, including the new quarterback. You're kind of fitting it all together, are you not?
Yeah, and it's a process that goes through. Sometimes whenever you're fortunate to have a player like Cameron Mitchell once in your career, okay? He's a generational talent. But sometimes even his teammates are in awe of him, and they wait for him to be the guy that makes the play. Okay, so there's a little bit different feel because everybody knows that they have to pick up the slack. And I think that we're going to see a much more diverse attack and more guys touching the ball, more guys making plays. And ultimately that makes the locker room a pretty sound place when there's a lot of people getting their opportunities, that have earned their opportunities.
And you don't lack for athletes there.
No, I think we've got some young guys that are really pushing to get on the field early in their career. That, again, we talked about last Friday night. They got to go against live competition, varsity competition. And, so I feel like, maybe our overall numbers in our program aren't where it was 20 years ago, but I feel like our depth and our quality of athletes and quality of bought-in football players is as good as it's ever been. So when you couple that with playing in a great league, it's going to build an enjoyable fall watching these kids develop.
What's your defensive identity piece, or is there one at this point, Mark? Or are you still finding it?
Well, I think that playing defense in the modern day of football is an extremely difficult situation. The days of stopping ISO, trap, and toss sweep and play pass, those are over. People spread you out. And in our league, there are the most cutting-edge coaches in all of the nation. That, when you look at the Leonards, okay, you look at what David Hayes doing at Chatham. You have an explosive attack at Lincoln. Brody Walworth at I can just go on and on. It's tough to play defense in modern football. So I think that we are developing a identity this year. We had some long talks in the off season of what we've got to do to be successful with our kids. And again, I've never been afraid to change or look at doing something a little bit different. And our defensive coaches, I think, have had a great winter. I think we've had a great summer. We showed some things that we're capable of on Friday night. Obviously, when you have a good quarterback that you're going against, he's going to show some things that I'm glad we have another week to prepare for. But I think that we're closer to the identity that we had in the early stages of our tenure here, when we had the Les Hammers of the world, Ricky Padillas, where we were physical, where we're explosive on defense, where we're gang tacklers, and we're going to pressure you. We don't want people to be comfortable setting their feet back there, and I think that's what our approach should be.
You invoke some of the best Jacksonville football of your career and some of the best this town has ever seen at that point, which makes it a point that this is a different place when you're a playoff team. This is a different community when you're a playoff team, and I know that's the answer. And the math in your conference is tougher than most to do that. What's the line of delineation for Jacksonville this year, Mark, to get where you want to go? Because I know you were whisper close last year.
Yeah, we feel like if we wouldn't have had some injuries at a key spot in the wrong time of the season, it took some people a couple weeks after they came back to really be back to where they were. I think that obviously with the new conference, we were able to add some non-conference teams. Okay, I think that helps teams like Jacksonville that we're always on the cusp, but we get to schedule teams that fit where we're at as a program now. Okay, the crossover games are fair. Okay, we don't have to play Rochester and Chatham this year. Okay, so we don't have to play two of those. So when you start talking about math and stuff like that, there's two teams that are a little bit more competitive with the ability to get wins out of. I mean, by no means gimmies, but when you don't have to play the biggest school in the conference and the most heralded school in the state when it comes to public football, that's a better schedule for
Absolutely.
you. Okay, but we pick up a Quincy Notre Dame team that is physical, that is going to challenge you in all phases. They're solid. They don't beat themselves. Okay, and then same thing with Pittsfield. One of their best teams that they've had, people think, in 15, 20 years. They're big. They're physical. I got a lot of friends in the Sangamo that I talk to, and they say all the same thing. They're going to have a good year. So they're going to right off the bat punch us in the mouth, and we're going to have to not blink. So it's hard to say. 5 wins get you in.
Right.
Okay. I think with the new schedule and the ability to have some non-conference games, it's easier than in our old closed schedule to get the 5 wins because you can schedule some teams. But I don't want to put a glass ceiling on this season because it depends on how quickly we come together defensively, how quickly we come together with the new pieces offensively. I think we could be special. But there's a lot of work that has to go into that.
I lied to you. I have one more because you kind of brought up something that we've been talking about for a while, that even though we have no history and traction, that Week 7 game with QND does feel remotely important in some way. Like there is going to be some sort of gravitas with playoffs, or one of you going on a tremendous run, because I think both of you, if you get into the playoffs, there's a chance you could be there for a little while.
Yeah.
Does that, I know you can't instantly conjure a rivalry, but it feels like there's some underpinnings there that might help.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great matchup. I think there's always a big brouhaha when Jacksonville comes to Quincy or Quincy comes to Jacksonville, whether it's Quincy Public or QND. Okay, Jack is a close friend that I've really gotten to know the last 10 years well. So I think it could be. Jacksonville's really never had a rival, just from where we're at, and Jack and I have talked about. We need to do some research to come up with something that connects the two, that we could, play for the old wooden bucket or something like that. So I think after year one, I think there's going to be a little bit more on the table that's going to make it even a bigger game.